One of the most common questions I get from the health experts inside my Nourished Business Accelerator program is about email list growth. But not just any list growth, because let's be real, more subscribers does not always mean more clients, but how to grow an email list with the right people. The ones who are actively looking for answers, feel an urgency to solve their problem, and are ready to invest money in getting results. In today's episode of the Nourished CEO podcast, I'm sharing a behind the scenes clip from one of our coaching calls where an NBA client, an incredible practitioner specializing in women's hormone health, asked me what could she do to bring more faces onto her email list. She's been showing up consistently, she's been sending out newsletters, and people are reading them, but her audience is mostly current and past clients. What she really wanted to know was how does she get more ideal future clients onto her list so that her emails actually lead to discovery calls and sales? My answer? It comes down to messaging specificity. In this clip, you'll hear me break down why simply saying, quote, join my newsletter doesn't work, and honestly, it never has. I'll share how to design a lead magnet that pulls people in who are actively seeking a solution. And you'll learn why narrowing your messaging around specific symptoms or pain points can completely shift how your marketing lands with people who actually want to buy. Because when your content speaks too generally, people scroll right past it. But when you speak directly to the problem that's keeping them up at night, the thing that they'd pay to solve today, that's how you instantly stand out in a noisy online space. So, if you've ever felt like your list growth is stagnant or you're just attracting a lot of freebie seekers who never actually move forward to pay you, this episode will help you see exactly where the gap is and how to close it. Let's dive in.
I have been really consistent with my newsletter in the past couple months, and that feels really doable and it's enjoyable for me, which makes it easier for me to be consistent and motivated. Problem is, my newsletter is like mostly current and past clients. Like, I don't have a lot of potential clients on my list. And so I'm just kind of wondering around I don't remember if there's any place in NBA where there's like specifics around like actually growing your newsletter list and getting people there. And I'm kind of wondering with Instagram, I have been kind of being like doing less education and more like, yeah, talking about my process or things I focus on or certain mindset shifts and stuff. And then like encouraging people to like DM me or whatever. And I'm just wondering, like, a lot of the times I'm pushing people like DM me to like, or like schedule a discovery call or something. But I'm just wondering, like, any tips, I guess, on like, how do I get more people on my newsletter list? And should I be using Instagram as a way to be like, posting just more about like, "Hey, I'm sharing this in my newsletter last week, like or next week, like join here." Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out like how do I get more people on my list because I'm enjoying doing that and I
Mhm.
think probably I haven't had a lot of people. I thought I was going to have a bunch of people like unsubscribe just because I wasn't really ever consistent and now I send out 2 a week and they're really short, but it's still emails in people's inboxes and some people don't like that. So I've been pleasantly surprised with the limited amount of people unsubscribing, and my open rate is around 50% for most of them, which feels pretty good. But again, it's current and past clients, so I just want new faces on there. So I'm just kind of seeking thoughts or advice around.
Yeah, well, I will say module 6 is like the list building module for lead magnet creation. That's where I'm adding the new meta ads stuff for paid traffic. I know a few people who do newsletters really well as far as that being the way that they present it as a lead magnet. For most people, getting people on your list with something more specific, give me your email and I'll give you this thing to get them on the list and then continuing to send the emails once they're on the list. That's generally a better strategy because people, as you said, not everybody really wants emails unless they think they're valuable. And how do you know if an email is going to be valuable until you get it? You can't really know that for sure. So if you can get somebody on your list and then start sending them valuable emails, they'll
Mhm.
stay versus saying, oh, join my newsletter. And it's like, okay, great, another newsletter, right? There has to be something really motivating for them to get on that list. So 2 things. One, you can promote the newsletter as its own thing. someone I used to work with. She has something called the Feminine Periodical, I think. She sends it out every Sunday, as far as I remember. So I have seen this where she'll say, hey, the Feminine Periodical is going out tomorrow. This is what I'm covering. Click this link to get on and get
Mm.
what's going to happen tomorrow. So there's a little bit of a tease to say this is what's coming in that particular email. So you're still speaking to a specific thing. You're still saying, here's what's going to be covered in this email if you want that and get on the list. It's not just this general, like, join my email list, because people nobody wants to be on anyone's email list unless they're getting value, right? So that's one way to do it. And then again, the other way to do it, which is the way I typically do it, although we do mention our weekly dose emails as something that people can get on our list to get, it's still presented as a, get like what's working in online business, get our best strategies, our best tips. Like I send the blog, I send the podcast, like they're just getting, here's a bunch of things that could be helpful for you this week. That is something that most of our email list growth comes from specific lead magnets that we are promoting. So for me, our main lead magnet is our video sales funnel that you guys will be getting the how to do that stuff in the portal in the next few weeks. I was hoping to get it done a little faster, but life had other plans in the last 10 days. So we're getting it done. But all of that to say, we have that video sales funnel that for me is our main traffic driver. When somebody signs up for that, they do get on our email list. And then there's other little lead magnets here and there that we promote. So we have a few different ones on our website. Usually, if I'm going to have another lead magnet, it's going to be around a very specific topic. So our video sales funnel is like the overall, if this is the result you want, this is what you should do. And here's how we can help. Like that's the big sales messaging in that video. But I also have like, my top tech tools for online business download. I have a profit planner workbook, which helps people. Like you guys have that in NDA where it's helping you figure out what your prices need to be to make your income goals. That's like a little worksheet that we have on the website. So somebody can opt into that. That's probably one of our more popular ones. We also have a secret podcast. So people opt in to get an audio series. That's a great one as a lead magnet. So we have a lot of different lead magnets. The main one I'm promoting is our video sales sequence because that's the most like sales driving option for us. But people come in from all different areas and then we're constantly pointing them back to that sales process. So all of that to say, all you need is one thing. You do not need 8,000 different lead magnets. All you need is one that speaks to the desire of your ideal client. The more specific, the better. Usually like a really specific outcome or a really specific problem that your dream buyer wants solved is what I would start with. And that can get them on your email list. And that's where you can continue sending these emails. And then I always recommend including somewhere in the email information about how they can work with you. So, if it's a PS, like if you want help with this, book a call with me. Here's the link or whatever, just to make sure you're not missing opportunities to have somebody take the next step with you. But as far as the list growth is concerned, one strong lead magnet that's designed for your ideal client that ties into your overall methodology for the problem you solve gets them on your email list. Like that's typically what I recommend. And that's what we cover in module 6. Do you have something like that yet?
I do. I have 2 different lead magnets and then like kind of a nurture email sequence that goes out after they get both of those, like encouraging them to get the other one and do a discovery call and work with me.
What are the topics of those?
One is a meal plan for each week of your cycle. And then the other one is a list of all the labs that you want to get done if you're wanting to like learn more about just general hormone health and like why those are all important, and then information on like when to get them done and all of that.
Okay. I would recommend going really specific on who it's for and what problem does that solve. As an example, saying, here's the labs to check for if you are experiencing hair loss. And here's how they can tell you what's going on and why you might be losing hair. That is a much more attractive lead magnet than something that's like, here's a list of labs to get done if you generally want to learn about your hormones. Like that's probably not going to convert as well. So I'm not saying you have to like specialize in hair loss, but I know that was one of the things you mentioned was a topic. And so Somebody who is dealing with hair loss is going to be way, way, way more interested in that than general hormone lab work.
Mhm.
Because somebody with hair loss doesn't necessarily know if it's hormonal, right? So you're kind of like, that's kind of like what I was saying with the whole symptom versus education angle. The symptom is hair loss. They want to know, why am I losing my hair and how do I fix it? If it's like general education about hormones, that person has to already know that hormones are important to their situation. So you're actually asking them to be a lot more advanced in their knowledge and education about their own issue. And if they are, then, they may already be working with someone. They may have already like kind of been on the path that they're already going to get this solution. They don't need to pay for something versus when you're talking to that very specific symptom that they've already tried to solve. It's not going away. It's getting worse. You're having these like, why is this happening every other week? It's something where that conversation is going to then be much more magnetic to the person who's in the problem and looking for, like, I will do anything it takes to get this fixed. They're going to be much more drawn to that language. And it could literally be the exact same content within like the same labs, like explaining why they're relevant. But that specificity is going to pull the person in a lot faster. So that's honestly, I will say that's probably the biggest problem I see with 95% of the people I work with is their niche specificity in their marketing is not specific enough. They don't realize it's not specific enough because they're like, well, it's hormone health. It's for women. It's lab values. It's like, I'm talking about something specific, but it's not specific for the person who's dealing with the problem. It feels general. It feels like, I don't know. I'm not sure if this is really what I'm looking for. And the challenge is we're in such a noisy, you know, AI fueled information overload space that if you aren't really specific, people will just scroll right past because they don't even know that you're talking to them. Right. So that's where getting that hyper specificity around exactly what's going on for the person who would pay to get it solved is going to be a much more effective list builder for you with people who would be more likely to buy as well, not just somebody who's like, yeah, I'm interested in hormones and cool, I'm gonna like learn more, but I'm not really in any sort of like serious problem right now that I would pay to get solved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think I have been feeling like it felt really good to get those lead magnets made and like have the sequences and stuff, but like there has been some interest, but it makes a lot of sense to be, yeah, a lot more targeted with that message. Would even doing something like a lab list for if your cycles are longer than 35 days, like, does that feel specific enough or does that even feel like too broad?
Well, I guess the question would be, and I say this as an actual question, this is not rhetorical. Do people care that their cycles are longer than 35 days?
Mm. I mean, the clients I work with do, but
Is that why they came to you? But like, that's the number one reason I'm coming to work with you is because my cycles are longer than
right.
35 days.
No, that's not like the ultimate. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. No, I mean, it's like to get pregnant or to like be fertile for that in the, future, or they're just like ultimately worried about their health. Yeah. That's a good question, I think, to ask myself of like, do people care about that ultimately as I'm like figuring out how to get more specific?
Yeah. I mean, literally, it's like, do they know that that's their problem and do they care?
Hmm.
And I know that sounds so basic. And it is. I mean, it really is. I sometimes it's really easy to overcomplicate marketing, but at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't know that they have the problem that you solve or they don't care that they have the problem that you solve, you're not going to make sales. I can pretty much guarantee that. I would be very happy to put money on that statement to say if they don't know and they don't care, they're not going to pay you for the service. So, do they know? So again, do they know that long cycles are a problem? Do they know that that's something that is related to the other problems that they have? Do they know that 40 days is not normal? Are they even tracking it? Like, who's to say they're even tracking their cycles? Maybe they're not paying attention. And if you have a 40-day cycle, you probably are not necessarily super aware versus if you're just flat out missing your period, right? So do they know? And then do they care? Does somebody think, oh my gosh, like I have a 38-day cycle. I need to get this fixed like right now. Probably not. And if they're like, maybe this is a problem, they might do some like Googling or ask ChatGPT or something where it's like, what could I do to, make this better? Versus, and I'm not going to harp on the hair loss thing, like for you specifically, but as an example, like a very personal example, I think it was like last week. For some reason, and this is like postpartum. So, my hormones are all over the place. We're dealing with lots of the 1 to 2 transitional stress stuff is like in the mix there too. So I'm like, all right, there's only so much I can expect for health. But I think it was like last week, I had like a really itchy scalp. And I don't know if it was like I'd got my hair done. I don't know if there was some weird, product that I wasn't reacting well to or something. But I remember I was like kind of doing this and my hair was just coming out in like clumps, right? And I am 6 months postpartum, so I know that some hair loss is normal. But I was like between my scalp being itchy and like this huge, and I have a lot of hair, so it's like it's not a huge deal if I lose a lot. But I showed my husband, I was like, look at all this that just came out. Like that's insane. And so I immediately went on Amazon and was like, let me start shopping. Let me get some stuff. Let me get a product. Maybe I can get something that'll help. And I bought something that I've used and it's helped and it's beneficial. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that was just, I needed some like, topical improvement treatment kind of thing. But you can see in that particular situation, it was like that was happening. And I was like, I need to go spend money on fixing this problem. And it wasn't a ton of money, but if that didn't work, I might be like, okay, well, maybe I should, like, if I kept having a really itchy scalp where hair was coming out at that volume multiple times a week, like I'd be like, all right, now I need to really get this figured out. So that's the kind of problem that is high value. It is immediately like, I need to fix this. What do I need to do by, what's my next step versus like, the menstrual cycle thing for me, my cycles are back postpartum, but I'm like, oh, my last one was like 6 weeks or something. I'm like, do I care? I don't know. Not really. It's not really a big problem right now. I'm not worried about it. It'll probably figure itself out. Right. So I'm not like immediately going on to Amazon to try to find a product that's going to fix that. So I use that as an example because first of all, I am a buyer. I am generally a person that will spend money to solve problems. And there are people who are like that. And that's generally a easier person to sell to, the kind of person who's like, I'm going to pay money to fix my problems. I'm not going to just like waste hours and hours trying to figure it out for myself or sit and be physically uncomfortable. So there are certain types of people who are much more of the I will spend my money to fix a problem type of people. Doesn't mean we can't work with other people. It just means if you want to make faster money, talk to the people who use their money to solve their problems, right? And then what's the type of problem that drives purchasing behavior? What's the severity? What's the impact it's having? Why would they be someone who would pay money for that? And so, at the end of the day, if we're asking those questions, we can start to kind of narrow down what is important to my ideal client. What will they pay for? What will they not pay for? What is something that if I start talking about this, they kind of like back up and say, I don't know if that's what I'm looking for, right? If we make it sound like too much work, if we make it sound like they're not ready for it, if we make it sound like, oh, I've already tried that before, they will go book somewhere else. So this is something that it's come up for me too. Like I've been kind of reevaluating our messaging to say, okay, like what do I need to be talking about? Because my industry changes really, really fast. And so I have to kind of like keep up with it. But really going back to my, like, who are my buyers? What do they say that they want? Why did they pay me? What is it that they thought they were going to get from paying me? And how do I make that more front and center with my messaging? And then how do I layer my unique philosophy on top of it so that they say, I can get what I want. I can solve this pain that I'm in and I can do it in a way that is the way I want to do it because that's how Laura does it. Right. So that's how we want to be thinking about anything we're putting out for our content. Because if they think she can't help me, or if I'm going to work with her, it's not going to help because I've already tried it, or it's going to take too long, or it's like, too roundabout and I want something that's going to help me fast. That's going to then repel somebody who would buy from you and would actually have a really good experience with you versus if you're like, I can help you with this. This is how I can help you get this result. I can help you do it without the things you don't want to do. I can help you even if you've tried this and it didn't work. And that's where that messaging starts to call out the right person who would be ready to buy and would get a really good result with you. So I know that's like way more than you asked about, but it's really, really important because, just to your point about list building, we don't want to just get any randos added to the list because that's not helpful. And I'm not saying like, listen, I don't expect everybody on my list to buy. I would be happy if like 2% of my list bought on a regular basis. So I am not expecting everyone to buy, but I don't want to be putting a bunch of people on my list that would never buy and just like either aren't a good fit for what I sell or the kind of people that value their money more than they value their time or their, enjoyment of life. So they're not going to spend money, but they'll spend 100 hours trying to figure something out on their own. So that's not my ideal person. I don't want to create content that drives that type of person onto my email list just to get free tips from me for 3 years. So thinking about getting the person on your list who is seeking right now to solve a problem, it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to buy right away, but they're not going to take 3 years to buy because, as soon as you start to talk to what they're really looking for, they'll get closer and closer to a sale. And there might be somebody who buys very, very fast. So that's what we want to build our list with, is the person who is actively seeking a solution, feels like it's a serious problem that they want solved right away, and they would rather spend their money to solve it than spend hours a week sifting through newsletters and social content and blog posts and podcasts and all that, trying to like piecemeal their own unique results together and maybe get 10% progress, but not actually really get the full result that they're looking for. So like I said, that was a lot of information. The TLDR on that one is specificity will attract the person who's really looking for a solution and speaking to a problem that's immediately an issue and causing a significant amount of either discomfort or blocking them from something that they want. So in the fertility space, it's they really want to get pregnant and have a baby, and that's getting blocked. If it was like the hair loss thing, again, if I was experiencing what I experienced last week every single day, I would be out of my mind. So I would be looking for a solution if the little topical treatment thing didn't work. That's the kind of stuff that's going to drive purchases. And we want to make sure we're layering that into every single part of your marketing. So the title of the lead magnet, why they should even download the lead magnet, what are they going to get from reading the lead magnet, so that you're actually like, you have to sell people on consuming your free thing. Like you have to sell people throughout the entire process, sell them on giving you their email address, sell them on watching the video, sell them on reading the book, sell them on taking the next step, even if the next step is something that they can do for free, sell them on talking to you, sell them on like getting into the program. Like it's just sales across the board. And all of it comes back to human motivation, which humans are motivated by avoiding pain or experiencing pleasure. And we have to generally focus on one of those two things to get people to move. It can be either, it can be both. You don't have to be like fear mongering to talk about pain that somebody's in. I wasn't being fear mongered when I bought my scalp treatment. It was just like, hey, if you're having these symptoms, it works. It had a 4.8 star review on Amazon. I'm like, all right, purchase, let's go. So it is something where talking to the symptoms doesn't have to be fear mongering, but they could be symptoms that are very, very frustrating and something that somebody wants fixed as soon as possible. So that's like, if we're going back to messaging 101, that's the kind of stuff everybody here, myself included, has to be returning to over and over. And that's what's going to create more sales opportunities versus just audience growth, audience engagement, but nothing that's really turning into actual purchases. So anyway, that was like quite the monologue. Any questions about that?
No, I don't think so. That's all. It's very clear, and it feels less overwhelming to think through it since I already kind of have all the structure in place with the lead magnet and all the emails and stuff. And so I think to go back to it and find ways to be more specific and thinking through, yeah, I mean, it's one thing to get them to just give me their email, but then to actually read through the lead magnet and do it and then sign up for a discovery call, which is ultimately the goal, right? So yeah, I think that'll be helpful. Just a good next project for me to have to kind of go through everything with that perspective.
And honestly, I do that too. Like I'll make a funnel and then go back through the emails and be like, okay, do people really care about this? Is that what they would actually say? Having that like what's in it for them filter on everything. Because the hard part is because we're experts, we know why they should care, but that doesn't mean they care. Like, we're like, we want to shake people and say, I promise this is going to be good for you. And it's like, if they don't care, they don't care. Right. So we need to speak to what they already care about so that they can get into the thing that's going to help them really holistically and help with a lot of different things that maybe they didn't realize they needed help with. But it's our job to nail the language around what do they actually want and not try to talk 5 steps ahead of them like, oh, you want your hormones fixed. It's like, no, I want my hair to stop falling out. I don't care about my hormones. My hair is falling out and my scalp is itching and I feel like I'm going to go crazy. Right. So it's like, don't talk about things that are like way outside their awareness of even being something they should care about. What are they already caring about? And, how, like, is it a 10 out of 10 they care about it? Is it 2 out of 10? And it is something, again, I literally, one of the main things I do from a marketing perspective every week is review things to say, is this what people care about? Is this what they actually want? Am I speaking to something that's talking to buyers? Or if I get like a bunch of applications coming into the program and none of them move forward, I'm like, oh, I must have been talking about something that wasn't really a buyer conversation. Let me like review what I've been talking about and make some tweaks to talk to what my buyers talk about. I'll go back into the assessments and NBA. I'll look at your guys, like, what's your number one goal for this program? And literally pull language. Like, Lauren, I think yours was one I pulled out as an example to tell my chat, like, consolidate all of these things into like, what are the top 10 things my actual buyers want? And let's really emphasize that. So that is something where you can go back to your current clients' intake forms and say, well, what did they say they wanted? A form to sign up for a discovery call. Why did they sign up for the discovery call? What was in it for them that they thought it was going to be useful for their time to actually book that and show up for it? And so that kind of stuff, consolidating all of that and finding themes and patterns and, commonalities and language that's, common across different people that are coming to you, that's what then can get layered into, like, it could be a good email, but then if you add that specificity, it could be a great email that works a lot better. So yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't share that to make you guys feel like marketing has to be a full-time job, but I just want to remind you that sometimes something that you've created was just like draft one, and it helps to go back and look at it through fresh eyes and say, is this actually speaking to something that I know my buyers want? Or could I just tweak the title, tweak the language, like add some extra details in here that would be more attractive to the person who's an actual buyer? So unfortunately, there's very little set it and forget it in business. And yes, you can create systems that overall don't need huge overhauls, but there's a lot of times where you can go back and just enhance the messaging so that it works even better for you. So anyway, that's been on my mind in the last couple of weeks because that's one of the things I've been playing around with on our end, especially since we had a run of applications that came in and I'm like, what? How am I attracting these people? Let me like go back and look at what I've been putting out there. So it's kind of like a moving target sometimes, but the more clear you get on it, the easier things are moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. This is why I'm so anal about the niching thing, because I'm just like, kind of going back to what I was sharing with Laura at the beginning. It's like, if you don't know who you're talking to, it's like, of course you have no idea what you're doing, right? Of course you have no idea where to put your energy or what to say or how to say it. I just don't understand how you can do any of your business activities if you don't know who you're talking to and why they should listen to you. So I know it sounds, for those of you who've been in business longer, it can sound very 101 to talk about niching, but niche specificity and hyper specificity, especially in this market, is so important. If anyone's feeling like they don't know if they're getting the specificity they need, please share in the circle group what you're working on, because that's something that I can absolutely help you with. I will tell you if it's not specific enough, because for me, it's very easy to spot versus for most of you, it's probably not something you are noticing because you're the expert in that topic and you think it's specific and you don't realize that it's not. And we all have our big blind spots. And that's why I hire my own people to look at my stuff, because I'm like, I don't necessarily know if I'm being clear. And the only way I can tell if I don't hire an expert is by sales data, right? So it is something where that's what we're here to support you with, is that clarity and that specificity. And please don't hesitate to post whatever you're working on in the circle group to get feedback on it. Because honestly, like, that's one of the areas that I really see, whether somebody's brand new to business or I work with people who they're already doing 20, 30K months, that specificity is what's preventing them from getting to the next level or even to get sales in the first place. So I'm going to double down on that with you guys because I don't want anyone leaving this program with vague messaging, vague offer, vague lead magnets, that kind of thing. Hopefully this rambling was helpful for you guys. I've just been very in my thoughts over the last couple of weeks about what people really need to be successful online and how I think I was partially talking to Kalisha. I think she's still here, right? Yeah, like Kalisha with all the stupid stuff that these other business coaches teach. And guys, it does not have to be all of these tactics, but there's certain things that you can't skip. And that's the stuff I really want to make sure you guys are getting here.
I hope that listening to that coaching call clip gave you some clarity around why messaging specificity and a strong lead magnet matters so much for growing your email list with the right people. Remember, your audience doesn't just want more information. They want to know that you understand the exact problem they're facing and that you can guide them towards a solution. When you nail that piece, list growth and client growth happens so much faster. So if you're listening to this and you're realizing this is exactly what I need help with, getting more of the right people onto your list, dialing in your messaging, and building a business that consistently attracts and converts high-paying health clients, I'd love to work with you inside my NBA program. Just DM me the word NBA on Instagram, and I'll send you all the details and the application so that you can see if it's the right fit for you and apply now. And as always, if you loved the episode, don't forget to follow the show, leave a review, and share it with another health expert who needs to hear this message. I'll look forward to seeing you here next week on the Nourished CEO Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Nourished CEO Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation and it brought you value, I would be so grateful if you would take a minute to leave a review over on iTunes. Your feedback not only helps more amazing coaches and practitioners like you find the show, it also helps me keep creating the kind of content that you want more of. Just head over to Apple Podcasts, search for the Nourished CEO Podcast, scroll down and tap that write a review button. It only takes a minute and it means the world to me. Thanks again for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode.